Andre Mills is back from Maryland basketball.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys all for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we're driven by the details, and highlights make the reel, but the work behind them makes it count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward, the all-new Mazda CX-5. Move to move every side of you. Andre Mills is back for Maryland football basketball, and this changes everything for the Terps heading in to next season. So back-to-back days, we got huge news that first Pharrell Payne announced that he would be back, who I think we would all agree Pharrell Payne was our best player last year. I know he only played in 10 games, but when he played, averaged 17 points per game, had a ton of double-doubles, was by far our best player and was one of the better players in the Big Ten. And when we lost him, our team went downhill. We weren't as good, but there was a guy that was one of the very few bright spots of this team when Pharrell Payne went down, when things weren't going necessarily very well, and that was Andre Mills, who ended up being our best player in the last, 10 to 15 games of the season, like the last half of the Big Ten play. Andre Mills was a problem. Like, he was a problem for defenses. And I said this the entire year. I have never seen someone develop in year quite like Andre Mills developed. Like, I've seen guys make a lot of jumps from like freshman to sophomore year, sophomore to junior year, or junior to senior year, whatever the case is. I haven't seen people make a big jump like Andre Mills did in season. Like, it was pretty crazy to watch him go from a guy that was like a okay player for Maryland basketball earlier on in the season to a guy where it's like Andre Mills is dropping 20 points every single game. And so he made a jump in season that makes me really excited for what he potentially could do heading into his redshirt sophomore season. Because remember, he redshirted as a freshman at Texas A&M. So technically, eligibility-wise, last year he was a redshirt, or this past year. I don't want to say last year, like 2 years ago. Like, just this past season, he was technically a freshman. And then next year, he'll be a redshirt sophomore. So he still has a good amount of eligibility remaining, is still young. And I just think the jump potentially that Andre Mills can make, even though he already kind of made an in-season jump, but he can make another jump to potentially like a star type of player. That is in his DNA. I think he's the potential to do that. And so I think it changes a lot that Andre Mills was back. To be honest, I kind of like knew the whole time. I don't want to act like I'm like in the building or know what's going on, but I told you guys I had a pretty good feeling he was going to honestly come back, just because it wouldn't make sense for him to leave. Like, he's a guy where it's kind of the definition of you feel like the grass wouldn't be greener on the other side. And what I mean by that is he's been with Buzz Williams for his whole career. He made this huge jump with Buzz Williams. You don't want to jump ship before you're like solidified as a star. Like, I still think there's progress for him to be made, but I think he trusts Buzz Williams, and I think it made a lot of sense for him to stay. So I did totally expect him to stay. But I think getting a guy back like this, I think makes our team so much better for next year. Like, we get a guy back who averaged 12 points a game, 4.1 rebounds as well. Like, he was a guy all year for Maryland, or he was a guy the second half of the year for Maryland basketball, and ended up really kind of putting himself as position to going into this redshirt sophomore year. Like I said, I think he can be a star. Like, I think him and Pharrell Payne make a really solid core to start this thing. Like we're kind of having to retool this thing. We're kind of having to hopefully get back to where we want to be. And I think in terms of returning players, like I've said all off season since Maryland played its last game against Iowa, who now Iowa's making a run, which is kind of crazy to watch Iowa make a run in the tournament. But since their last game, Maryland's last game, I've been saying Andre Mills, Pharrell Payne, Darius Adams, who we'll talk about later. Like if they come back, it changes a lot of things for Maryland basketball. Like look at some of the performances that Andre Mills had down the stretch. Like this is exciting stuff. Against Northwestern, 39 points. That like a 39-point game in college basketball is crazy. Against Washington, then next game, 21 points. And then the next game against Nebraska, he had 19 points. The next game against Rutgers, he had 15. He had 14 against Wisconsin. Then the next game against Illinois, he had 30. Like that's an all-star type of stretch. And he's one of those guys where I always wasn't sure. I knew he had the athleticism and the talent, but for me, for Andre Mills, I wasn't sure if the offensive skill level was there, and that's where I saw him kind of develop the most in season and taking the next step was offensively, his skill level, his shooting ability. Like he became a really solid shooter down the stretch. He became a really good creator of the offense, and I think he's best still getting downhill, getting to the rim. He's a bouncy type of athlete. Like he's a pretty good he's a pretty elite athlete, I would say, for a guard and what he does for his size. Like he rebounds the ball really well for a guard. He has a chance this offseason to become like a good player in the Big Ten to become a really good player. Like we saw okay in the season and then we saw good. Now he's a chance to take a step to be consistently really good. And it changes a lot. Two starters coming back. One guy who I don't know what the number is, but the second half of the season, I want to say he averaged like 16, 17 points per game when you got into when he started to play well. And then a guy in Pharrell Payne that averaged 17 points a game. Two huge starters coming back. And with our freshman class coming in the portal, that means something. And I really like where we're at, I think. And he has a chance to become more consistent in the offseason because he did still have some streaky games. I don't want to act like Andre Mills was perfect in the second half of the season. He had games where he was streaky. Like I know in the Big Ten tournament game against Iowa, he went 1 of 13 from the field. Against Oregon, he was 3 of 13. Like he definitely had games where he was streaky, where he wasn't as good as we've seen him be. But we know he has a chance to be really good for Maryland, and he's still young. And I also think he can be a top-notch defender, which I think Buzz Williams is probably most excited about. Is his raw athleticism translates right over to the defensive side of the ball. I talked about it. I think he's a really good rebounder, but I think defense, I think like he could be an all Big Ten defensive team guy. So perfect start for Buzz Williams, perfect start to the offseason. And really getting a starter back of this quality really does change a lot for Maryland basketball. What we'll have to do in the portal. I kind of like, I don't know, I kind of see him more of as a two guard more than like a one. And so I would really still like to see us get an elite point guard in the portal if that's possible. Like the kid from Oregon's in the portal. I don't think we'll get him, but that just an example, like someone really good like that. And then the next piece is what's Darius Adams going to do? I honestly don't know. I think it could go either way. But we'll talk a little bit about that more later on in the episode. But I'm just excited get a guy back that developed, that put in the work, and hopefully he'll continue to blossom under Buzz Williams. And then one more point about the Pharrell Payne thing. We're pretty sure he's coming back, but he still has to get it cleared by the NCAA. I'll be pretty upset if that doesn't go through. I think we're assuming that will go through, but I think people will definitely, or I know people will be upset if that doesn't go through. So just hope and pray that goes through so that we can see Pharrell Payne back for Maryland basketball, because that would be huge for us to have both of those guys back. And so I'm excited to see what it looks like, but this is as perfect of a start to the offseason as you could honestly ask for Maryland basketball. Let's talk about Malik Washington. Does he have to carry the offense for Maryland football? We'll talk about that next. The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets. It's a nonstop action from tip to final cut down. And right now, FanDuel's giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's the best part. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, or even same game parlays for bigger potential payout. It's a perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new. Different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. This is Moving the Game Forward by Mazda, and for those who know, the score never tells the whole story, and there's more to these players than the highlights. The early mornings, late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad, and for me, that's Malik Washington, a guy we're about gonna talk about in a second for Maryland football, put in a ton of the extra work and was able to show up as a freshman and prove that he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and we saw it. We know he put in a ton of extra work with his receivers, his tight ends, his offensive line to get everybody on the same page. And the all new Mazda CX-5 moves the same way. With more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology, you can stay connected to the road. And every position you play, the all new Mazda CX-5, more to move every side of you. So I want to kind of chat about Malik Washington, and I do think there's a world where he has to honestly carry the offense. I kind of can see that going on into this year. And there's an interesting article. It was a lot about kind of how we've read a couple of different articles about Maryland football that I've talked about, but there was one earlier about Clint Trickett and how the new OC for Maryland football and how he wants to play more up tempo. And then there's an article about Malik Washington potentially having to carry an offense. That is just we just don't really know. We don't really know what it's going to be. I don't have a ton of confidence. I have a ton of confidence in defense. I think it's could be a top unit in the Big Ten. The offense, I think we have a top quarterback in the Big Ten that could make us a pretty good unit in the Big Ten, but I don't think we have a top supporting cast in the Big Ten. And it leads me to say I think Malik Washington's going to have to carry a lot of the load. I think he's going to have to make some throws this year that in past years, like I think of a guy like Talia when he was playing, throws that Talia never really had to make. And Malik Washington's far more talented than Talia was. But Talia had a lot of stuff kind of going for him with who he was throwing the football to. It felt like I talked about with these receivers, like he always had kind of a surplus of guys, different players that you felt pretty good about. Also, that was prime Roman Hemby time. Roman Hemby just won a national championship, but Roman Hemby was kind of in his prime when Talia was throwing the ball. He had good, like Corey Dyches, that tight end. Like Talia had a lot going for him. I don't know if we've done, and I could be wrong on this. I don't know if we've done a good enough job of surrounding Malik Washington with talent, and we're going to see it this spring. We're going to see it. There's going to be plenty of reports about it, but I don't know if we've done a good enough job surrounding him with talent where now I think he might have to carry the offense. And it happened last year a lot, but I just didn't know as a freshman if he could do it. I think as a sophomore, it's more kind of in his cards in terms of how much he's probably developed and gotten better and having a year of college football. I think you can ask a little bit more from him, 100%. Do I think that that's kind of beneficial to us? No. But when you look at it, our offensive line's never been good. Our receivers are completely new. I don't know anything about any of them being a top receiver, even the Maryland guys. And our run game hasn't been good either for the last couple of years. The only thing that we can feel good about is we have a quarterback that showed a lot of flashes in his freshman year. And so there's a real possibility where Malik Washington might have to carry this thing. It's a possibility. Like I can't lie. The receivers, we don't know anything about these guys. the transfers, the guys that stayed. Like, yeah, I would like Caleb Webb to be pretty good heading into another year for Maryland football, but he only put up what 300 yards receiving as our fourth receiver last year. Like, I would like the transfers like Durr and Naheem to be pretty good, but we don't know how good they're going to be. They haven't played at the Big Ten level yet. Malik might have to make some throws. Might have to make some throws that you kind of look at every game and you're like, oh, we probably weren't supposed to get that. We probably weren't supposed to catch that, or we were that window is probably not really open, but Malik made it happen. Trust his tight ends a lot. I think that's going to be a big thing with Dorian Fleming and Preston Howard. That might be a big part of our offense. It might be have to be a lot of that tight end over the middle, tight end in the red zone. And I think there's another dimension to this that we're not talking about. I think Malik Washington might have to carry with his legs some games, and I want to see that. That's how you win games in college football. The NFL, like, it's hard to win sometimes when you just trust your quarterback to sit back there. And we kind of did a better job of this later on the season. But we started making Malik Washington too much of a drop back guy. And I know he can do that. I know he kind of has that pocket passer in him, but he's an athletic kind of specimen. We want to get Malik running. Like, there should be games where he should run for 60 yards. If that's the way we need to, if that's the way we need to get a win, or if that's the way we need to get the run game going because it can't happen, I think that's going to happen under Clint Trickett. I think he's going to be less afraid to do that. We've seen him run the quarterback a lot more than what Maryland has. Like, if you guys remember when we had Billy Edwards, I was kind of like, isn't Billy Edwards' whole thing kind of that he's good at running? Like, I get he has a good arm, but he's not the most accurate for the football. Why are we trying to make him into something that he's not? Like, let's get him outside the pocket. Let's get him moving. Let's get some read options. Like, we weren't doing that with Billy Edwards. And I think we picked up with Malik Washington a little bit later in the season that we got to run him because that's just our best chance to win games, put up decent numbers on offense, get a run game going. And I think Malik is going to have to do that a little bit. I think there's games where a run game will really be going, and we're going to all look at Malik Washington and be like, we need you to do this thing. We need you to make 5 kind of crazy throws in a game, but also run for 50 yards. I do kind of think the up-tempo thing is going to give us a little bit more. Hopefully, that defense is on their toes a little bit. It felt like we didn't do much of that before, so I hope we can kind of get into that a little bit more. But it's going to be interesting for Maryland football offense. I think there's a real world where we have a star guy, but we haven't put enough around him for him to kind of make us look as where we want it to be. And there's a world where he also just carries it and is like, whatever. So we'll see what ends up happening. The supporting cast could be much better than I think. It could also be worse than what I think. So it'll be interesting. But I do think Malik Washington could have to carry, especially earlier on in the season when we kind of are getting used to Clint Trickett's offense, different things like that. Let's talk about Darius Adams. We heard about Pharrell Payne. We heard about Andre Mills. What's my best guess for Darius Adams? What will happen with him? We'll talk about that next. This episode is sponsored by Supply House. You wouldn't show up to game day without a plan, and you wouldn't show up to a job without the right parts. That's why putting Supply House in your starting lineup is always the right call. 300,000 plumbing's HVAC and electrical products, 500 tried and true brands, and 90% of the country is 1 to 2 day delivery zone. Need a last minute coupling, a compressor, a press tool? They've got it and they'll get it to you quickly. They are clutch. If you're a pro in the trades, you can join the MVP of rewards programs and become a Trade Masters Pros. Get exclusive member only pricing, priority shipping, industry leading customer service, and it's all absolutely free. Visit supplyhouse.com/trademaster to learn more about becoming a trade master. Use promo code SH5college for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com/trademaster, promo code SH5 College. Supply House, real people, real service. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's the people moving the action, so when your momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. And now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator, play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the US. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. So, Darius Adams. It's an interesting topic because I don't know what is going to happen with him. I don't know if he's going to end up coming back. I don't know if he's going to end up going into the portal. I really have no idea. I think it's much more 50-50 with a guy like that. It just made sense. When we thought about Andre Mills, it honestly just made sense. Like there was no chance Andre Mills made this huge jump under Buzz Williams. Buzz Williams recruited him. He already came over from Texas A&M to Maryland, followed Buzz Williams. It didn't make any sense for Andre Mills to jump ship. It just didn't. He played really well at the end of the season. You know he trusts Buzz Williams. He's been with him. Like it was pretty obvious to me that Andre Mills was going to be a Terp. Like it wasn't rocket science. You can usually kind of reason this transfer portal stuff out. Sometimes I know it's random, but a lot of it you can kind of reason out, like to be completely honest. Pharrell Payne was one I just didn't know because I thought his value would be so high in the portal that it would be hard to say no to some of the money that probably people would throw at Pharrell Payne for another year. But I guess Maryland did its thing. Darius Adams is one of those guys where you just don't know because let's call it spade a spade. His freshman year was very up and down, very up and down. Like there were times I thought he looked good. There were times I didn't think he looked great. I know he has the tools and the potential to be a really good offensive player in the Big Ten. Like I know that, but I think he just lacked kind of strength at times. He really was inefficient shooting the ball. We know he can shoot the ball, but he only shot 24% from three all year. He averaged 10 points a game, 10.8 points a game as a freshman. Like you can't complain too much about that. I just don't think like he was kind of ready in terms of like physically. I think skill wise he was, and then his shooting just wasn't. I know he can shoot the ball at a high level, but it just wasn't really going. Like I don't know what else to say about that. Like his form looks good, everything looks good. You know he can shoot the ball. It just wasn't going in last year as much as you probably, or we know he would probably want it to go. And so you wonder if he wants to try something new, if he doesn't feel like he fit in well, whether it's about Buzz Williams, whether it's about Maryland, whatever the case is, I think you would lean towards more about like Buzz Williams if he doesn't think he fits into the program just because of the up and down year. I can see that. But I also see a world where he's like, I averaged 11 last year, didn't shoot the ball well. If I can take another step under Buzz Williams, play another year with Maryland, it could look really good. And then you got three starters coming back, all of which I think can be upwards of 17 point per game guys, and you're cooking. If Darius Adams is like, yeah, the more and more I think about it, I could have done some stuff here. You're cooking. If you have Pharrell Payne, Darius Adams, and Andre Mills coming back, and you haven't picked up anyone in the portal, plug in Baba, the 5-star talent, and then you get House off the bench. You get Adama off the bench. You could be up to something there if Maryland could get that. Keith Passmore coming back from injury. Who knows what Darius Adams will decide? I think either way, we're okay. I think if he goes, we're going to need a small forward in the portal, like a good one, not just like anyone, like a good small forward in the portal. And if I had to guess right now, I would guess he hits the portal. That's my guess. Remember, he was committed to UConn before. I don't think he goes to UConn. Not sure UConn would even want him, but he would have plenty of options because he did show a lot of promise as a freshman. I know he didn't end up kind of being as good as maybe we hoped. Like he was a 5-star talent on a lot of websites, and when Buzz Williams flipped him, it was pretty surprising. But there's still a lot there for him to become a really good offensive player. Like I said, I think he needs to get stronger. He needs to get more efficient. He needs to kind of get his shot more consistent. But I do think there's something there with Darius Adams. He averaged 11 points as a freshman in the Big Ten. Like, that's not bad at all. He had games where it showed a lot. He needs to be more aggressive. He just needs to be a little bit better. And if he does, I think he can be a really good player for Maryland basketball. But that's all we have for today, guys. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.